Welcome to Home and Away, a Tottenham Hotspur podcast hosted by myself, Graham Spice, and Glenn Cowie, where we discuss all things Tottenham Hotspur with both the match attending and international supporters' view. Got a big episode to get through today. Glenn, are you good?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. No time for weather chat, but Daniel Levy has gone. Almost 25 years. His hair getting ever less. He's left the building. So, overseeing 14 permanent managers, 6 caretakers. I think Ryan Mason was about half of those. It's led to believe and reports Levy's last act was signing Xavi Simons in the wee hours of the morning to get that over the line. And further reports suggest he had no idea, had meetings in his calendar. It was business as usual for Daniel Levy on that particular working day. But we've got 2 great guests, Jeremy and Stephen, both expats in Colorado. But I would say both expat in Colorado, but with very differing views on Levy. So I'm looking forward to hearing each of their viewpoints. But before we do that, Graham, what's your take on all this, mate? A crazy few days at Tottenham.
Yeah, interesting week. Probably the biggest week in terms of the club as a whole since he took over. Nothing, I think, in the meantime has been as significant. I did say, if I recall, that I expect there could be changes after the window closed, and I thought they would wait because they didn't want to destabilise any transfers that were going through. There sounds like, and we can talk about it, that on top of him going, there is investment and there is naming rights, etc., coming as well. And again, I'm not surprised that they didn't say that until after the window had closed as well, because same reason. No one. It's a bit like I said with Newcastle. When Newcastle go looking for a striker after they've just sold and they've got cash falling out their pockets, and they get the trousers pulled down on the next transfer. Same thing. I didn't think, it wouldn't be good for us to be seen to be incredibly flushed before the window closed, and it seems to have played out all right because I don't think we overspent in the window. Mixed feelings about it. I mean, from an infrastructure perspective, left the club in pretty amazing place, but I think we could all be disappointed with the overall performance on the pitch. We've had a few nearlies, but never really capitalised. I think my biggest problem we have against him is that we never really capitalised when we got close. Those were the opportunity. Those were the times we should have invested to push on, and we had periods like the 2019 season where we didn't buy anyone in 2 windows, and I think that was down to him. That's not really I don't believe that was a management decision. But yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. I'm not sure it'll be that much different, I've got to be honest, but we shall see.
Well, on that, I'll bring Stephen in. Stephen, you and I were messaging a little bit, just one-on-one, and then since in the group that we're in, you seem quite optimistic, which doesn't surprise me, I guess, given that you weren't a big Levy fan. But do you feel that this changes the club's approach? It sounds like Enick are sticking around. Sounds like the Lewis children, I guess they're not really children anymore, they're in their 60s, I think, but they're going to be taking it forward. You seem really optimistic. Is that coming from a place of the man that you put at the feet of a lot of failure has gone, or do you feel that there is change on the horizon and we will act a bit differently now moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's everything you're saying there. I think there's an element of how I feel associated it. So the variable is an unknown, right? What we don't know right now is what the future holds, right? We can only just go on the information that we're fed through traditional media, social media, friends, etc. What I find interesting is we can't discount the fact that we do actually have 25 years of empirical data associated with Daniel Levy, right? And so there's absolutely, I'm not stupid. There's 2 ways, 2 pieces, 2 segments. There's Tottenham Hotspur, the football club, and then there's Tottenham Hotspur, the enterprise. He, from an enterprise standpoint, there's nobody on this earth that could say that he hasn't been a fantastic manager, steward, CEO, chairman, however you want to term it, the person at the helm of that business. The things that he's done and brought to the club to make it financially viable for the future, which is definitely has been Jeremy's position for a long time, is undeniable. I'm definitely in the camp of I couldn't give a crap about how many Beyonce concerts there are, or I can drive F1 karts if the team aren't winning. However, if I take my emotion out of it and say, okay, I doubt there's a better positioned football team in the world from a foundation standpoint and a financial standpoint. So on that part, I recognize that he has been absolutely spectacular. And I personally am thankful for that to an extent. But then there's Tottenham Hotspur, the football team. all of us can agree we're kind of a similar age group. It's just we had like don't know, Jeremy's a lot older, Finn's a lot younger. Right?
Easier.
But right, we all
Easy. I don't know.
experienced. We all experienced the hazy days of the 80s, right? Which were, again, what were Tottenham Hotspur known as? We were pretty much, you could put a bet on it, we'd win a trophy every few years, right? Whether that be an FA Cup, a League Cup. We were a trophy team. We've never been a league team, a league title team. And I think most fans were okay with that. And then we kind of went through this period. It's interesting you're saying, Graham, about like pivotal moments. I think this is the most pivotal moment in my adult life as a Spurs fan, as far as the club goes. If I look back, when Levy took over, I actually don't really remember too much about it, to be honest. It wasn't, sorry, I got a fly in my face. It wasn't a big deal from my memory. I actually have more of a memory of how big a deal it was as a kid when Alan Sugar took over from Irving Scholar. That was a big deal because the club was in a bad way. There was this like new technology guy when no one knew about tech coming into it. So as far as the team, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, in 25 years, we have the data. We've won 2 trophies. And I'm not going to discount in any kind of hierarchy of how good a trophy is. As a Spurs fan, I'll take any trophy every year. I'll take the League Cup every year. I'll be happy with that. But I've always wanted more. And it was the thing you mentioned that always got me, was it was so very obvious that he was great at leading the horse to the water, but never, ever getting it in there, right? It was never that. You've got the era, in particular, of Harry Redknapp when our first taste of Champions League, and we had that transfer window when we dealt with, Louis Saha and Ryan Nelson, right? Then you had the Pochettino famous interview, like, we have to go through a painful rebuild. And what happens? We go on like a 2-year sabbatical from transfers. There was always that obvious, right? None of us have inside knowledge. None of us do. None of these ITKs do. No, but I don't believe anybody has the real inside knowledge. But what is very obvious from the outside is that we had a transfer policy consistently since the opportunity for Spurs to really go on and push on and challenge for titles back in what, what am I thinking here? Probably 2012? It's probably
About
right
that,
at that time.
First, 2010 really, yeah. Well, 9,
And we
10.
never did. We chose the cheaper options in the players. We obviously had a wage cap that limited our ability to attract players. We then always tended to go, okay, we've got £100 million, rather than go and buy maybe two £50 million, £50 million, I've got to say pounds because I'm used to saying dollars, £50 players, we're going to go and buy 4 £25 million players with a potential sell-on value. People with potential, that's what always got me. So kicking this off, I think that's where my position is. I think he did an absolutely terrible job and was far too involved in Tottenham Hotspur, the football club, and its potential to win trophies and have success on the pitch, but did a polar opposite, immense, spectacular job of setting us up for the future. And I think the timing for this is, I am super excited about the future. I can't quite put my finger on it. I just feel like it's going to be different. I'm choosing to believe the information. I've just seen the interview with the new CEO. You've seen a club statement come out yesterday as well. They've even openly said that, okay, Amanda Stavey had a group and another group from China that indicate they want to buy the entire club. And they said, absolutely not, we're not for sale. I'm hearing it on good authority that the naming rights have been signed up. And so there's a good chunk of money there. And very likely, I think, if ENIC are going to stand by what they say, which is we're not going anywhere, I think the next option is then they will basically sell a smaller interest in the club and raise capital for that. So based on the interview the CEO gave, he said the Lewis children and the grandchildren are lifelong Spurs fans. They're generations of Spurs fans. They want what us fans want. They want success on the pitch. And they've made their decisions based on that. And they are going to be backing the now hierarchy and the infrastructure at the club from the football team standpoint. So, yeah.
No, good. Thanks, Stephen. And you'll hear from me in a little bit on some of my views. But Jeremy, let's talk to you, mate. I know that you've backed Levy. You've met Levy, as have I. Not maybe to the depth that you have, because I think you spent a bit more time with him than me getting a cheeky little photo with him in a restaurant, and another one in San Jose. But your view, mate, in terms of the last 25 years, or the transfers, or the perceived, like Stephen mentioned, being let down by him. Where do you sit on that?
Well, first of all, we've got a really interesting time going on here, that's for sure. And I think I'm looking forward to hearing the unraveling of what actually went down with this whole situation. Because let's not forget, Josh Levy, his son, is also a seriously high-ranking partner at Tavistock, which is the main investment company of Enix.
Co-CEO, apparently.
Co-CEO. So he's there along with the, I guess, the grandson of Lewis and his wife, and then the 2 kids from Lewis. So they're all pretty tight in there. So Josh is in there as well. So it came as a bit of a surprise how that all came down. So I can't wait to hear how that all happened. But getting to the actual situation, first off, I knew Steve, Steve, I thought of you immediately because I know how much of a fan you are of Mr. Levy here. And I knew you'd be excited about that. But I hate to burst the bubble, but I still don't know how much of our failings are down to Enix and not necessarily Levy. Joe Lewis didn't really have a lot of interest in the actual football side of things. And supposedly, on average, he invested about £5 million a year on average. So his investment was minimal. So Levy was basically instructed with building a business from the ground up. And let's not forget, they paid £90 million for it, wasn't it? Was that the amount?
So.
Yeah.
It was
You remember?
200 million, wasn't it?
No,
Oh, no, 20,
no,
sorry,
it was,
20 million? Wasn't it 20
I think
million?
it was 80.
I thought it was 80 or 90 is what I
Yeah.
remember.
It was a really low amount.
But we were absolute shit back then. We were a team that had a couple of aging stars. And let's not forget, around that time, we would usually buy great players who had just past their sell-by date. They wouldn't have gone to Real Madrid. They wouldn't have gone to Man United. We picked up great talent just past their sell-by date. And I think we had a good strategy to build the club long-term, and I think Levy deserves a lot of credit. But now we're going to see what Enix's all about and whether this was actually Joe Lewis was the bigger problem or Daniel Levy. Now, where I think Levy is the problem is his negotiating positions were too strong at times. We know that. We've heard the quotes from Ferguson. We've heard the quotes from people who didn't want to do business with them at all. So by taking that out of the way, maybe we have a clearer path to securing the players we want. But this last transfer window seemed to be a real turnaround. We were going after the big players. We were going after those. We weren't really messing around with the money side. We paid the release clause for Morgan Gibbs-White. That got screwed up. Apparently, the Eze deal was all done, but he was just waiting for Arsenal, and he contacted them to goad them into it. So we were always going to get screwed on that deal. But then he made sure the Simmons deal happened. I mean, we signed some decent players. We've seen a change for sure over the last couple of years, a little more focused. I also have a bit of a problem blaming Levy for everything on the playing side when, Stephen, as you just said, we were a cup team back in the 80s and the 90s, etc. The best you could hope for was the occasional really strong cup run. That was it. FA Cup was the dream. League title, forget it, wasn't happening. It was never going to happen. And the idea of qualifying for Champions League even, getting a top 4 finish, was unthinkable until finally it all came together. And at that point, there was a clear plan and a clear path going forward. Personally, I want to see us challenging for the league every season, which obviously 17th does not help with that. So I can understand why Ange had to go, and I did think it showed a lot of promise as to what we really want. But let's not forget, under Poch, what did we finish? Second, third, and then second again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The year Leicester won it, we should have won it. We were the better squad, the better team. We were consistent. We didn't need any players at that point to push us over the edge. We were the better team. If that Chelsea game had gone differently as it should have done, we were all over them. We win the league. End of. So, I don't think you can put that down to Levy. How many semi-finals have we been in? Was it a crazy number, like 17 or something?
The
A
number's
lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finals and semi-finals. I got sick of it. No. I arrived here in 2014, Jeremy, and so I'd spend God knows how many years before that going to semis and finals and watching us lose.
Yeah. I went to 1.5 finals with Glenn.
Yeah,
Saw
you're
us
my
lose.
brother.
So, and so, we've had the opportunities. We've been there. I think the big frustration for most people will be the transfer windows, where, as you mentioned, the Louis Saha. That was just a bit of a joke. Ryan Nelson, Louis Saha, that was a joke. Under Poch, we should have pushed on for sure. But I still don't know for sure that it was all down to Levy and not down to Poch not wanting the players available.
Well,
You
remember your...
I think that's the point. Like I said, none of us actually know, right? It's your interpretation and my interpretation in different areas are slightly different. One of the things you mentioned, though, which I wanted to quickly pull you on, was, and I got this from the CEO interview today, was Levy's role. And it was very clear in that interview when he said to him, he's like, listen, Levy was an executive, right? He was full-time, hands-on every day, involved in Tottenham every minute of every day. He said Peter Charrington is a non-exec. Essentially, he's going to be a part-time chairman of the board, not involved with the club at all. That is a huge change. That is an absolutely huge change. And again, I can only make some assumptions based on seeing the last 25 years under Levy, what our transfer policy is, the types of players we went for, etc. So I don't disagree, Jeremy. Your interpretation, it could be right and mine could be wrong.
There's a couple of other things as well. I think he recognised a couple of things we had to try and change, which was progressing more through the youth system. And I think we tried that. And I think we brought in players like Winks and etc. Obviously, Harry Kane is the most famous example. But we had quite a good bit of success at one time. But then it became clear that wasn't going to necessarily get us all the way there. And then the stadium was the big one. And that was, Levy took 10 years out of his life dedicated to that. And his whole mission was setting us up for the future and giving us headway with the revenues to be able to compete and invest the money when we do have the money. And he understood that the revenues have to be there. And it's all well and good saying, let's go after that £60 million player. But if that player wants 250 grand wages and Man City are going to pay it and Chelsea are, we can't afford him. We didn't have the revenues for that. So we were kind of handcuffed a little bit by our financial situation. Whether we invest or not is another story, but there's a limit to what we could do without having someone like Abramovich there with the deep pockets or the Manchester Cities of the world with unlimited funds and willing to bend all the financial rules. So I do believe he did the best he could in the situation and recognized where we had to go. And I believe he built us a stadium that is just unbelievable with the multiple revenue streams to allow us to compete on the field. And I do believe he always wanted us to. I never think he wanted to settle for us being second or third best. I think he wanted that league title there. But I also think it was time for him to go because I think you need a different structure. Any business can be run a certain way until you reach a certain level. And when you reach the next level, you need people who can run it at that level. So Everything you say, Stephen, is 100% right. He was too invested in it at this point, too emotional at this point.
He ran it like a family business. He was literally in control of everything. And I think that was to really grow. He needed to be able to delegate the responsibility for doing more to more people and not be the marionette in the background touching everything. And I think why having a non-exec chairman will be a good thing because it will allow the operating executives to get on and do their jobs. I hope that makes a difference, but we'll see. You made a good point as well, but by the way, Jeremy, about we'll find out whether ENIC were part of the problem or not now that he's not there to be the fall guy for them.
Yeah, because the eyes are now going to be on them, Graham, clearly, because he's now
not just
kind
that.
of shut.
But my point is they had 24 and a half years to make a decision to get rid of him if they thought he was mismanaging the club. I don't think they thought he was mismanaging the club. I think maybe the last 2 or 3 years, probably since Pochettino, since the stadium was built, I think we've kind of meandered a little bit. I don't think we've had a clear direction. We jumped around with styles of manager, approaches to recruitment. I don't feel like we've ever had a clear strategy. And I think maybe that was the thing that we never looked like we were taking any steps forward. We seem to have gone backwards quite a bit until obviously last year where we won, but we still had a bad league season, but we won a cup. But I think we're just doing a bit.
The cup was amazing. Let's not kid ourselves. There was a ton of luck involved in us winning that. We played a really bad Man United team. We had some very favourable ties to get there, right?
But do you think on that? But do you think on that? And I'm not going to disagree. I think the Frankfurt away game was probably Ange's best kind of tactical setup for us. But do you think if I go through Levy's era, right, and I'll come full circle on my response to you there, but 2002 League Cup runners-up, 08 winners, 09 runners-up, lost on pens, 2010 semi-final lost to Pompey, FA Cup semi-final 2012 beat by Chelsea, 2015 League Cup lost to Chelsea, 2017 FA Cup semi-final lost to Chelsea, some plays left wing-back, 2018 went 1-0 up, Dali Ali lost to Man United. Champions League final loss, League Cup semi-final loss 2025, and then obviously the Europa League win. You say, let's not kid ourselves, there was a lot of luck involved there. Do you think we weren't due some of that luck? I mean, in terms of going through that list, could have been very, very different, right?
100%. You and I and every legit Spurs fan, probably at that moment, we didn't even care about anything, right?
Yeah.
I burst into tears. So it was like this visceral reaction to it. You and I was WhatsApping each other on the video, right? Just after. You was half cut, but it was
half.
My response. My response to that, Glenn, would be in all those finals. What if there was those two players that were top draw that we paid for? Would we have won them?
I think that there was at least 3 or 4 of those semis or finals that we lost where it was absolutely nothing to do with Daniel Levy and it was bad decision-making by the manager. But you could even say the Champions League final, playing Harry Kane, who's clearly not fit. So, you can't blame Levy for those, right? Those are management decisions that he had no part in. So I think I think he gets blamed for a lot, but I think that if you look at that, we've got to late stages in a lot of competitions in his tenure. And I think most other teams who made it to that many late stages in the competition would have won more trophies. I think we just
but if you're a pure football fan, if you're a pure football fan, you don't give a shit about coming second. All that matters is winning trophies.
No, this is my point. I don't.
Likewise, it's the band.
You're right. You're right. I completely agree. But that's not on him. In my view, I don't think most of those losses are not on him.
I sit somewhere in the middle on it. I think to Stephen's point, the Kane situation where if anyone's Pochettino, including the 4 of us sat here, does any of us not pick him? I don't know. In that moment, like to say, there's your best striker in the biggest game in the club's history, because it was.
He's on the bench.
He's
on the bench.
I know.
Put him on the bench.
I agree, but it's like, I think Pochettino was damned if he didn't, damned if he didn't. Because he could have bring him off the bench and it could have been the same outcome, right? But yeah, to your point, Graham, it's not all on Levy. But then to Stephen's point, if Pochettino looks over his shoulder and sees his bench with a more adequate out-and-out number 9 to be able to fill in, it's, yeah.
How much of those losses as well was the culture of our club, the Spursy element, the fact as a team, most of the time, I think we're going into some big games and we're already in a loss mindset. I truly believe that.
Well, it's well documented by Hugo Lloris that he gave everybody a Rolex for getting to the final.
Exactly. Right. And I as a fan,
did you supply him, Jeremy?
Supplied by Jeremy.
No, if I'd have supplied the watches, we'd have won.
My point, what's important about the point I'm making here, right, is where is the culture of an organisation? Where is that ultimately set? That's set at the very top and it trickles down. And I truly believe that Daniel Levy was quite happy with being top 4, with the revenue that was generated, being one of the top 6 clubs. I think he was quite happy. I am not for a second saying that he didn't want to win trophies. I believe he wants to win trophies, but I don't think he was motivated to the point of winning trophies that we as fans are. I really don't. And so I think it was that culture that was set from the top down that contributed to what ultimately became the term Spursy. It didn't exist before Levy.
I think there's got to be a little bit of reality about this situation at that time. There was so much money in the Premier League, for one, but there was so much more money just with Chelsea and Manchester City. Once they got their grip on everything, there wasn't a lot left for anybody else. I mean, look at, even Man United after Fergie, they collapsed completely. Liverpool had a few rough years in there. Excuse me.
You make a good point.
Even the neighbours.
Jeremy, that we, at the point where we were at our best, where we reached a peak where we had built a really strong team and we were really doing well. Everyone else did as well. So it's like being Andy Murray at a time when you've got Djokovic and Federer around as well. We were good, but everyone else was good too.
Everyone's strengthening. It's happening right now as it was.
It's an arms race, right? It's always
under Red. Everybody's strengthening. And there's always going to be those in modern football. I don't think we're ever going to get away from the fact there's always going to be teams that are going to be higher benefactors of their ownership structure. Right? To your point, to Jeremy's point, it's now the minute Newcastle are allowed to spend, I'm scared of what they're going to spend. Right, and now attracting someone to live up north in Newcastle is a very different discussion with a top player than it is with asking them to live in Manchester or London or even Liverpool, right? But we're never going to get away from that. So if it's like, again, I go back to my point. My assumption is if only we did get those 2 or 3 extra players when at the time that we really, really could have pushed on, you may be right, Graham. We might have been, okay, Poch gets what he wants. Okay, Chelsea are just throwing money. Man City are just non-stop spending still. They're like unbelievable and unbeatable on the pitch. Maybe we wouldn't. But maybe we would have got a League Cup. Maybe we would have got an FA Cup. Maybe we would have got a UEFA Cup or European League Cup. That's
guess
kind of like where I was always at as
hindsight's a wonderful thing. We'll never know, right? It's interesting.
The one who gets labelled with, and I've had my statements about it, I've called it like a lack of judgment, but if I sit on the other side of things, objectively, hiring Pochettino, if you're looking at a manager that's lost 2 semis and 2 finals, let's not forget the context that led into his firing, where we got pumped away to Brighton 3-0, and then I think it was 7-2 at home to Bayern Munich, all off the back of not winning.
I was there for that one.
Yeah, not winning semis and not winning finals. Objectively, you could sit there all day long and say Levy did the right thing by bringing in a winner, because he did. He followed it straight away with Mourinho.
No one can question the pedigree of the managers. That's for sure. I mean, I can't even. But
it's a very different. It was a very different managerial appointment for that, because he wasn't our first choice, right? Who was it? We were Van Gaal, wasn't it? We were originally dancing around Van Gaal before he went to Man United.
Yeah. But my point is,
De Boer, I think we even talked to.
Yeah, I remember that.
But my point is, he looked at it objectively and said, we're not winning semis, we're not winning finals. We've got a guy here that's emotional and very attached to the players. And I'd love to see him come back one day and finish the job, because I really like him.
Might happen sooner rather than later, the way that the US national job's going, right?
Yeah, right. But did he look at that and say, look, I need to get a winner in? But then on the other flip of the coin, why would you fire a winner, was it 4 or 5 days before a cup final? So he'd done strange things. Right?
That was the mental one for me.
Things.
Yeah. That was
the
sense.
mental one. He must have had a real issue with Jose to do
I
that.
reckon there was a bonus associated with
That's
it.
going to be something.
That's anything I can think of.
If you take that and then factor in the infamous Conte press interview, right, where Conte just lost his shit exactly. And don't get me wrong, there is an element of Conte which is camera on me. I know it creates a lot of drama.
He's done it at Napoli already as well, hasn't he, on occasion?
But the point is, I think a lot of us fans, again, rightly or wrongly, especially the camp that I'm in, which is the very emotionally I'm not a very stable fan, right? My emotions get the better of me, I'll admit to that. But
no,
I loved that interview because I was like, he's actually calling it out. All the stuff that I have been thinking, he's validating me. That's where I was so bought into that interview. And he absolutely called Levy and the ownership and the board out. Called out the culture of Spurs. And then he even went down to the players, right? And that for me... Sorry, go ahead.
I understand what you mean, but I had the exact opposite reaction to it. I got emotional about it as well. But how dare you fucking criticise my club? Is what I felt like. I felt really, really angry about it. But I just felt that
I think
he hadn't earned the right to have that to talk like that.
He made it about him rather than
he did. But arguably, Ange Postecoglou did exactly the same thing, but he did it in a way with grace, a bit of human element. Because he was saying all the things fans have been saying. We're not winners. Yeah. I don't see any pictures on the wall of second place or runners up. We want to put one up as winners. And he delivered, right? So that was a bit of a middle finger to Conte in terms of working in the same constraints with the same guy. Yes, we finished 17th. Well, I think there's tremendous context with that. And he delivered. He fucking delivered.
Yeah.
Can I address what Stephen said earlier on about us being Spursy and everything else and not having the mentality? I actually agree with that entirely. And I think that's what made Ange so refreshing. When he came out and said, I always win a trophy in my second season, he made the players believe that this happens. It does happen. And how many of us, hand on heart, can truly believe about midway through the season, as bad as it was going, I believed we were going to win the Europa League that season. I just did. Because I just believed that Ange had put that belief into the players. He'd hung his hat on it. He had said, this
Manifested
is
it.
what's going to happen. And that made the players believe that it is their destiny in his second season, not his first season, not his third
Well,
either. We know that.
there
But
was
his
a
second
cell in my
season.
body that thought we was going to win that, right?
Once-
And
once
I
we-
knew we were going to win it.
Once
I
we
knew
beat
it.
once we beat Frankfurt, I started to believe, and we got obviously Bodo in the semi. I started to believe it was possible. But on that note of Spursy, you're both right, and I think what I really loved about Ange's era with Spurs is that he almost used that as a them versus us type of mentality. I'm led to believe that he played on the big screen in one of the games. I think it was before the final, maybe, or leading up to it in training. Owen Hargreaves and Paul Scholes were interviewed saying, well, Spurs are never going to win because it's Spurs. And I believe he played that to the players. He said, this is what they're saying. This is what
Yeah.
they think.
Well,
Your
yeah, don't
Spurs-
worry, lads. It's only Tottenham.
Yeah. And he said, go
Yeah,
and prove them
exactly.
wrong. Yeah. So, getting a bit off topic, but yeah, I think he did the same as Conte, but in a different way, right? He delivered. But then it was well documented, I think, that he said after the final, he upset many in the club in his approach. Maybe one of those guys was Daniel Levy, in that finishing 17th
Well,
for the detriment of getting a cup.
I'm led to believe that when the review was done on Postecoglou, that it was Levy who was supportive of him staying, and it was the rest of the board that decided that they wanted him gone because they
Right.
wanted to focus on all fronts, not on one. So maybe there was something there. Maybe he finally winning a trophy after so long really won him over. But
Something that stood out to
whatever.
me on that Steve interview again was he mentions on there that going forward we're going to be a lot more vocal with our fans. So it sounds like, because that's what Levy didn't engage, did he? What was it? Once a year? It was like the freaking
Oh,
Queen's.
if that.
It was like it's like the Queen's Christmas message, and we was all.
Yeah.
All the meetings were just waiting on that, or he did every 2 or 3 years, maybe a fans forum when everyone's pissed off. But just that alone, I mean, as anybody who's got a senior position at a company, if you're head of a department or you're in leadership or you're a CEO, right, you address the company frequently, right? Essentially, as the CEO, the fans are part of that company in this instance. It's not a true business per se, but we certainly are. That alone would be refreshing. Feeling like we have some transparency to an extent that a fan should have. Of course, we don't need to know the inner workings and details, but just a little bit more transparency, a little bit more honesty. Like if there was a wage cap in place, I would come out and say, as an organisation, we have a wage cap of £150,000 a week, and here's why. At least I know where we stand, because if you don't state the facts to the fans, then all we're going to do is make up our own assumptions based on rumours, pieces of information, media pieces, ITKs, and frankly, most of it's probably nonsense, as we know, but myself included. I get so emotionally invested and pulled in, and just by the nature of how we are as people, I probably get pulled in the direction of what I want to believe, as opposed to what I don't want to believe. So I think that's a massive step forward for the club if they do stand on that and are a lot more engaged and provide a lot more information.
So on that, who's going to be negotiating contracts now? Is it the CEO, Vinay?
You'd hope so. Should make
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully means that
Chamington.
No, he's not involved. He's not going to be involved in daily.
He's in the
That's
board
more of a
decision. The
daily.
board will say, hey, you've got a budget of £100 million to spend. That then should go to the CEO, and the CEO makes decisions, I imagine, with the director of football, whoever the scout crew bar, and says, okay, this is our budget. We want to fill 2 positions. Go and get me those players. That should theoretically how it should work, which is, again, it will be completely different. That is a refreshing change from how it was under Levy, because Levy absolutely was involved in the decision making. It was obvious.
I think you mentioned earlier one of the biggest challenges now for us is up until now has been we could afford the transfer fees, but the salaries were a hurdle for us, like because we couldn't compete with Chelsea or Man City. There'd be $100,000 on top of what we were willing to pay to get someone over the line, and actually this, because we've sold or let leave a lot of players who are on high salaries. Salary to revenue is really it's the lowest in the league, lower than any other team in the league, right? So I think that's somewhere where we could improve our chances on the recruitment side. But I'm not expecting us to go mad. Some of them have got like 85-90% of their...
It can't happen overnight, Graham, because these
No,
are all
and I'm not
contractual
expecting it to.
obligations and business contracts, right? It's going to take time for this to play out. But
And let's be honest, what we don't need wholesale change in the squad. What we need is to identify players that will improve the team, but then just cherry pick one or two really good ones and pay the money in the future. Maybe, I don't know, it feels like that.
Well,
that
arguably, to
the
Jeremy's
opportunities
point,
open up to us a bit, don't they?
to Jeremy's point, this past window, we had done that. Like, Eze didn't get him, we know that. But I don't think we got Eze because I think he was always going to go to Arsenal. And then
Guna,
the Gibbs White debacle. And then we went and got Simmons. So I guess what I put in the room is a scenario. We're 2 points off the top in January. We're in the quarterfinals of, say, semi-final, last season Champions League. And we're going well in, say, League Cup, and the FA Cup hasn't really happened yet. It's that type of position that we've been in the past.
yes.
That's going to be the litmus test, right?
And then January, we wouldn't do anything under Levy.
Correct.
Where fans could all see it. And I think that's what we're all looking for, the change. Myself included, right? So we don't know if it's going to happen or not. I think what's interesting on that note, right? We know going into the rest of this time period up to that point, that scenario you've created, Glenn, I think I speak for most fans when I'm not going to be the person to say who we should go and get, but I'm definitely going to be the person to say of where we need to get. We have not replaced Son. We've got a couple of good potential players that maybe will come good to the point. They may come good. They're not now. We need players, if we're in that scenario, to be able to hit the ground running. I think we did a great job in getting Palhinha, Javi Simmons, kudos. I really do. I thought we had an outstanding window.
And one more. We got Kolo Muani as well.
Okay, Kolo Muani, on transfer deadline days, which I don't know much about him, honestly, Jeremy. So I'm just going to hold off. I'm hearing good things, and I've seen some good YouTube videos. But you could probably find some good snippets of me playing.
Ryan Nelson has good YouTube videos.
I think the point being is they're going to be under the spotlight now, Enoch. They can't hide from this because they know every fan is saying, okay, we know we need a left winger, we need a Son replacement. They're going to have to.
Go and get Savinho, go and pay the money.
If they
or
don't,
whoever it is. Yeah.
Or if the player wants to join, right? Because that is an important point to Jeremy's point. We don't know what goes on. We don't know who actually wants to join us, right? We don't want a mercenary who's just going for money, right? We actually want someone who wants to play for us. Thomas Frank seems to be aligned with the fans on that. By the way, I think I'm really excited to see the future under Frank. I think this is what's going to be really pivotal now in Enoch's immediate future. They're going to have to. Because if they don't, there's going to be unrest immediately. Okay, this is just the same thing. Nothing's different except you fired Levy, right? So we're going to find out soon. That's what I'm excited about. It's not like we're waiting for a year or two to see what is going to be essentially the leading indicators to where we're going to be in 2 or 3 years' time. We're going to see impacts theoretically immediately in the January transfer window, or we're going to hope to see them. That's going to be.
I don't think we're going to see a big change. I really don't. I think the last window or two has kind of shown the direction. We've cleared out a lot of the deadwood, got rid of the old contracts. Even players like Brian Hill. I mean, we took a bath on that one. It was a disastrous deal. But we got rid of a lot of players.
Not bad as in Ndombele.
And Ndombele. Let's not talk about that one. And again, that was Levy pushing the boat out, wasn't it? And, that was a big transfer. That was 60 mil.
I think,
but our transfer policy, to me, that's one of the points. Like, again, how much do we know is Levy was or wasn't involved? What we all can agree on, I'm sure that you will agree on. Our transfer policy in the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years, 10 years in particular, has been horrific.
Recruitment's been bad.
Yeah, we've had a couple of decent wins. The rest have been absolutely terrible. Now,
I reckon we could get 500 million worth of players that we bought. I could do a list of players that were inadequate for about £500 million worth of players over his tenure. I'm even going back to Rebrov as a record signing at 11 million back in 2001 or something.
If you look at the spend, right? If you look at the spend, like you said, we're like third or fourth in the last 20. I think I see something updated since in the last 10 years. Basically, I think we're third or fourth in gross spend. Net spend is a slightly different number, but on your point, Graham, I think it's a perfect example of what we've been like. Is that forward that Newcastle just signed for 82.5 million, and I think the owner of that club, was it Leverkusen? It was one of the German clubs. He literally just came out in an interview and said, "We've had their pants down." He just literally came out in an interview and said it. And so
Yeah.
I think if we could just stop those signings.
I think we have. I think we have the evidence right there is that we have. I think we've signed really well recently. I mean, we're all excited. We've seen the new signings. Kudus, I think, could have been a risk, though, because Kudus has turned out to be brilliant. But I don't know. That does make me, now I say it, question the scouting, because he had a shit season last season, didn't he, at West Ham?
Yeah,
Well, my
That
mate's
was a bit of a gamble.
West Ham mates are West Ham fans, and it just sounds like he down tools and he didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think he wanted to be there.
He wanted
What kind of professional mentality is that?
No,
To Jeremy's point, like for every like bit of business that you look at and you say, yeah, like that. And look, despite his start this season, there's Richarlison. How much was he? 50 odd million? I mean,
We'd have all binned him.
55.
Yeah.
I mean, so
He spent most of the time he's been in himself in
Injured.
the treatment room.
you could even say the same for Solanke. I haven't seen anywhere near a £60 million player. Anywhere near it.
I said the places for me. I do think our squad's in really good shape. I do think that one of Odegaard or Tell will come good. My money's actually on Tell.
I think Ted will come good. Yeah.
I don't see much in Odegaard. I think he's a championship player.
I like Tell's mentality because, like, having been dropped from the Champions League squad, he gave an interview where he's like, "I'm motivated to get back." And for me, that's what you want
Just
from a
scored an
professional,
absolute
right?
belter in the under-21s as well.
Yeah.
Today as well.
I think the squad. I'd say our first 11 is significantly improved. I think Josh said it when we did a recording last week when we did a live recording for the last hour of the transfer window, and he said that I think one of the challenges we got is that we've raised the roof, but we need to raise the floor as well. So the squad depth isn't good. So when we have got players out, there's a big drop off in certain areas. So there are areas where we need to have better backups as well to give us more depth. Because I think if you've only got to look at when we start to get a lot of injuries, the people that come in aren't as good. And even I would say that the PSG game, the last 20 minutes with the subs came on, the drop off was massive.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. But we've made those late signings that may make a slight difference, right? I do agree with what you're saying, Graham. I think we've got a squad that's like top 6, top 8. Kind of that area. I think our squad is. I think 1 or 2 significant signings. Then when you do have a left winger like Tell coming on, I think it isn't so much of a drop off. If you have a starting striker, Solanke for me should be coming on. I know we paid 60 million, which is insane money for a sub. I think I'm with Glenn on this one. I do not think he's a £60 million striker. That's not his fault. I think there's the right back's an issue because Jed Spence is a much better left back than he is a right back. So I think people talk about the left back. I think we're good there because we've got Adogian and Spence. Spence for me is half the player as a right back.
Hasn't been dribbled by Bournemouth. He had the England call-up curse, didn't he? But yeah, but no, he's been great. Yeah,
I think midfield we're in good shape. I think centre backs, blimey, I'm surprised with that Vuskovic go. What I've seen of him, that kid is good. I put it out on the World Wide Web right now. He's going to be world class.
Yep.
Every bit I've seen him, I'm like, so I think we're actually in really good shape squad wise. I think we need like 2 or 3 additions. I hope Enoch provide at least 1 or 2 of those in January, to Glenn's point, or I think we'll find out real quick.
Do you want a bit of breaking news?
Yeah, I'm just seeing it too. Yeah, go.
Nuno's gone. Nuno's gone.
Nuno.
Really?
Yeah,
No
and you know there's 2 people in the market, right?
It'll be
Jose
probably, won't it?
and Ange.
It's going to be Ange because of Marinakis, right? He's all over Ange.
Yeah.
Didn't he invited him to some awards ceremony?
No, he did. Yeah, he awarded it to him. Yeah, and you talk about, as we're talking about chairman and owners, and he's a basket case.
Oh, he's an arsehole.
Yeah.
If ever there was the most obvious player being held against his will, right? Did you see the big banner he brought out? What game was it? Was it
Palace? It was Palace held it up, didn't they? Yeah.
It's brilliant. It was brilliant. But he strikes me as just one big bully, that guy.
Yeah, totally.
Something that hasn't been talked about much, but was quite interesting and relevant in the current season is multi-club ownership. And we were basically when we were bought by ENIC, we were part of a stable of clubs.
Well, they binned them all off, didn't they? So it was Rangers, Slavia Prague.
Was it Lyon?
Team as well?
Who? Sorry,
I can't. I was a Greek
I think
team,
Lyon was one, wasn't it? Lyon.
and they obviously had to say we were the first multi club owned.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, given that's kind of...
What do we think the first season under the exclusive stewardship of Enix going to end up in at the end of the season?
Well, let's put it a different way. What do we think? But Jeremy, I'll put it to you first. What do we think? B, maybe what do we want? Like, what's a success? Now Levy's gone, we've got Thomas Frank in, we've signed some good players. I mean, Jeremy, what's a success for you? If you reflect in May and we look back on the season, what's a check in the box for you in terms of a win?
Our season not ending where we played Chelsea. That would be nice for once.
Yeah.
That would be a lovely thing.
Yeah.
I would say we just all want to see progress, don't we? And we want to see the club not holding us back. So just to finish up on all that subject, we're saying, like you're saying, that if we're doing well, let's say coming up to Christmas, what do we do in the transfer window? That shouldn't be a conversation. We should be planning what we need to be a title-winning team now, what we need to do in the window, and it should be irrelevant of whether we're 10th or 2nd or 1st. Doesn't matter. We should be planning what we need.
The only thing that changed that is injury, right? I completely agree. Like we know the positions that we didn't manage to get in the summer, and those are the ones we should be working on already. That's what's been one of my frustrations, I think, with our whole transfer policy is that I had this, it got to the point where I was sure that Levy only signed players at the end of the summer so he didn't have to pay them across the holidays because it made no sense to me to not give the manager all of the players at the beginning of pre-season where he gets the chance to coach them and train them ready for the start of the season. Like we've now got, he's got players going into a West Ham game, 2 players that have never played for us and they've been away on international duty. So like, I don't understand.
Well, to your point, Graham,
doesn't make sense to me.
This transfer window we just had, and I think it was a fantastic one. First, start by saying that. But it was still another one where all that Levy did was feed fuel to the fire of the rumours and the assumptions. It's really difficult to do. It's hard to make it happen. There's so much going on. There's all these variables, and then Arsenal, Man U, Liverpool, like bam, 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 players signing them in 2 days. And again, I don't know the back ends of it, but if you look, the optics of it was not good for Levy. It was like, why? Why? Everyone's like, why? Why is it? Why are they getting it over the line?
He's definitely got
it's over the line in what? In less than 24 hours. Before the only reason why they signed Eze was because Havertz got injured. But
they made that decision in like 24 hours, and the deal was done.
Yeah.
Whereas Maddison was injured for like 4 weeks.
I'll be glad if that's no more. If we the rumour comes out that we're interested in Glenn Cowie and then we've signed him in 72 hours.
On the Eze deal, I don't disagree with that sentiment that it happened very quickly for Arsenal, but I also feel, was there a certain element of persuasion needed from us versus them? If they
the player maybe not wanting to absolutely come and wait to see if he called from his boyhood team. I've got nothing against Eze. Fair play to him.
Parish wanted to keep Eze for the qualifier for the Conference League. That was one thing. And Parish, and I think this is where it comes back to Levy, I don't think he's in the wrong here, but his actions in the past would ever have pissed off Parish because he wanted to screw with Levy. There was no doubt about it. He was messing around. And I think I honestly think he was just using Levy to get the price up so that Arsenal would come in and match it. And if Tottenham were not involved, then it would have been a much lower fee because Eze wanted to go to Arsenal. Levy probably got Palace an extra 10 million for that deal, I would suggest.
I think you're right, Jeremy, and I think he publicly mugged him off. That's exactly what he did.
But this is we've done it twice in the past to Palace, right? So going back to, what's his name? We had a couple of players where we took them to tribunal over a couple of young players and ended up
John Bostock was
John Bostock, $700,000 for John Bostock.
Yeah.
So like I can imagine. I know he probably wasn't in charge at the time, but there are clubs where they've got long memories, I think, of having to deal with him in the past. So they almost see him coming and they expect everything to be difficult. So like maybe that.
Let's give him some credit. I mean, look at Xavi Simons, right? That deal. He was supposed to be going to Chelsea. And we were linked with him early on in the season. I remember having a chat saying, this is the guy I want. We were linked with him early on. And apparently we talked and Chelsea were just there and they're going to pay the money. And it didn't seem like it was going to happen. He was happy with the deal. And then they were the ones who dragged their feet. And so Levy stepped in, got him on a plane, and apparently kept him up to 4 a.m. to get a deal done. So he made that happen.
So almost Mariakis style.
Yeah, it really is. You're not leaving this room, mate.
Sleep deprivation.
And the Moani deal was Juventus dragging their feet.
Yeah.
He wanted to go to them. They had a deal in plan, supposedly, and they ended up screwing up. And Levy stepped in and very quickly made that deal happen, even though it's just a loan. But that really, that he was a player that I think is going to be very useful for us this season. But I don't think we have an option on him, though, do we?
No,
we
being
don't.
able to. I think what I read is when the window opens in January, apparently there's a clause in there where we can go negotiate and get an option.
I think once all is said and done on Levy, every fan has to agree on his legacy is the foundation from today going forward. The past is past. We can't change that now. As much as I might be angry and pissed off and spent 25 years, most of it being pissed off, that can't change. But the fact that what he's left us in the position is, I think we're
enviable.
in a good place.
I mean,
we're in a really good place.
I think there's been a lot of decisions that I was pissed off about, individual things, but at a macro level, his ownership was successful in that. If you recall, we had previously. So at one point, we were owned by Sugar and Venables, who turned out to be a wrong and who was in a lot of financial problems himself. And the last couple of years that Sugar was in charge, I don't think he spent a penny. He was shopping in the centre aisle at Aldi, and then so he did when he first started. We were signing big players like you can remember like Klinsmann and Les Ferdinand. We spent a lot of money, but then it tailed off. And then before that, we had Scholar, who was just a crook, and we had success while he was there, but it was all on the tick. We basically He's also one of those people who tried to probably a bit of a groundbreaker in that he tried to diversify, but like he owns the kit company, right? So it just didn't work. But we've had if you could say that we've had a period of real stability where we've never had any financial issues. That was the other thing. You forget under Sugar that we actually got fined as well and points deduction, and he took them to court. So we've never had any of that, none of that sort of the theatrics, none of those problems. It's been vanilla and dull and stable, and which I think the problem is there'll be a whole generation of football fans who have only ever experienced that. So they won't have known about all of the shit that went on before that and how precarious the club was at certain points, even in my lifetime, right? In all of our lifetimes.
And Jeremy's raised that
international fans, right? Yeah. International fans almost exclusive. You're not going to know any of that.
And actually, you make a really
revenue.
It's something I wanted to mention, that the fact that we have such an international supporter base and how much work the club does to facilitate that is really that he could take a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of all of the Koreans you see at football matches and all of the international supporters groups, many of whom we've had on here, all of that is because of outreach. There's a lot of outreach from the club. There's a lot of support for those organisations. So I think that's a real positive thing as well. Even like the women's team, the creation of the women's team and the support it's had, it's not been super successful yet, but the fact that it went from nothing to a WSL team. Yeah, there's a lot of things I think, although he doesn't like talking, I think the club does a lot of community stuff as well. Like they run a college, they do did work during lockdown on food banks. All in all, I would say, as a custodian of the club, he's done a lot of things that I'm quite proud of and quite happy about, except the bit on the pitch. So yeah, I fair play to the guy. I can't imagine spending 24 years in one job.
Well, yeah, whatever you think of the guy, it's going to be mighty strange when we're watching a game on TV or whatever, or there, and the camera pans to him, because that happens often, right? He's not going to be there, so it's going to be strange.
Well, he might be.
If you think of his role, right, just basically he was the chairman but CEO of the company. If he's a CEO of the business, he's done fantastic and he deserves his tenure. If he's a CEO of the football team, he should have gone a long, long time ago. Yeah, but then we wouldn't have this foundation.
I think this change arguably could and should have happened after the 2019 Champions League final loss in terms of a bit of a restructure, but it didn't. We are where we are. Hopefully we can kick on. But Jeremy, I think you were going to raise a point there, mate.
Yeah, I think it's just exactly what Stephen said. We should feel very proud of what he has accomplished. We can challenge the things he didn't accomplish. I don't think it's for want of trying. But the biggest thing is we have a chairman that's now left, and we are in a position that is incredible. we have, and the biggest thing we've got, if you compare us to the likes of Newcastle or Villa, etc., the way we're set up financially, we've got a massive amount of headroom to work within the
we can go
the
and spend,
financial
I
fair
think,
play and
300 million.
PSR.
We've got to use it, though. We've got to
Yeah.
Now
use
we've got to use it.
Agree.
Now here's where ENIC does not have that kind of motivation that other owners might, because they've said they're going to pump 100 million in, and they're like making a big deal at 100 million. What's that? 100 million is one top player now. I mean, this is not going to be groundbreaking. So we're still very much a self-sustaining business model, which is what Levy wanted. And I also think Levy recognized very early on the way the Premier League was going, the way the money was changing things. And he also recognized that for us to be a self-sustaining club, we have to do things a particular way. And along those ways, a lot of things changed as well. There is still the multi-club ownership and stuff. I think Chelsea are utilizing that right now, aren't they? They're taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
So
all
there
the
are some
loans to
things.
Strasbourg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You mean Strasbourg, Chelsea?
Yeah, Strasbourg, Chelsea. So they're taking advantage of it.
There's a massive pushback from the fans there. They hate it. They really don't like it.
It's all to take advantage of it and to try and basically cheat financially and not be a self-sustaining business model. And you look at United, they got taken over by owners and they were hated. Liverpool's owners were hated up until the recent takeover. So it's not always great when the money comes in. I think Manchester City is an example of a club that was brilliantly run. But even that took a few years to happen with the money. But I think what Levy has done is set us up to compete.
On the surface, brilliantly run, but in the background,
well,
the 115
their structure
charges would say otherwise.
Yeah, well, they're managing it well because they
haven't. But I do agree.
Nicked yet.
That's the same thing for them, is that the amount of work they did in the community and building the connection with the fans was important. And I think it's part of their giving it an acceptable face in English football. I think they did a pretty good job. How they got there is another thing completely.
Yeah, we know how they got there, and I'm proud of where we are and how we've achieved what we have achieved, the limited amount. But I'm proud of how we've got there. Far more so than if we'd have just been taken over and it's just Moneyball all the way through. I think when we do achieve more glory, and I think we will, I think we can feel very proud of it as Spurs fans. I think that's for sure. Now, do you think Levy should have a statue outside the stadium? Anybody?
Well, not before Postecoglou.
I think the stadium is his statue, right?
Bill Nicholson.
Yeah, very good point.
That's a good point. Right.
Where
are those
statues?
statues?
Statue. And then maybe Jimmy Greaves, and then maybe
Gregor Raziak.
Levy should have a gate named after him, an iron gate maybe. That's about
an iron fist
with his head mounted on the spike on top.
Yeah,
the exit gate.
Yeah, Steve would like the exit gate. You are now leaving, as Levy did.
Yeah, I want to just say to him on your point, though, right? That's exactly it. Right? Let's be honest. It's Liverpool, Man City, that lot, and Chelsea, right? They're the top four, right? They're the team that are distancing themselves from the second pack now, which is Newcastle, Villa, and I'm still going to throw Man United in there, even though they had as bad as finishes as what we did, and then Spurs. I think there's two groups of four, right? We are positioned comfortably to get ahead of that second pack of four. We should be delving our toes into that top four group. We really should, with the foundations that we've got. So now ENIC, for me, are under the microscope immediately to see if that's what their ambition is as well. Do we want to dine at the top table?
The one thing I think we really need to find this season is consistency. I think we can't afford to have like two good games, 2 good wins, 2 clean sheets, and then shit the bed against a team that we should be beating.
Like
I think
we
that's
did on Saturday.
Like we do every season just before an international break. I think it's like 9 international breaks in a row where we've lost the game just before the break.
Well, and isn't it 9 or 7 or something where we beat City and then we've lost the subsequent game?
As well, yeah.
But don't you feel like this is, for me, it feels like the most fresh start I've ever experienced as a fan. Now, I literally feel like I've been cleansed of my sins, and it's with Levy gone, ENIC seemingly committing to the future of success, Thomas Frank being, I think, a perfect profile manager for what we need, and then a really good transfer window. I think all those elements for me, I think coming back to your very first question in the beginning, like I'm really optimistic. Can't tell you exactly why. those things combined, I'm feeling more optimistic than I have done probably since 2016-17 under Poch.
And for me, if we get to May and in the season, for me, as I've maintained in the early episodes of this podcast this season, top 6 and a cup. I don't think we're going to win the Champions League. I would love to
Why
have
not?
the FA Cup. It's been too long. It's been 1991. That's mental. A top 6 and an FA Cup would be lovely.
I'd love an FA Cup. Right?
Yeah.
I'd love an FA Cup. And then maybe throw in their last 16 of Champions League.
Yeah. We need a good run in that.
Just to say we give it a good run. Jeremy?
Yeah, give it a good go. Jeremy?
You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just saying, I mean, first of all, I don't think we need to be any more excited about this season than we would have been if Levy was still there. The results are showing. We're starting to spend the money. It was starting to happen. I think it gives us a little bit of a lift for the past, and maybe it's a mental thing. I think for you, Stephen, it's a very mental thing. You just want to be rid of those negative ideas, but I don't think it changes that much, to be honest. And you go back to the best feelings. I mean, those first 10 games under Ange on his first season, I mean, that was ridiculous. We were playing incredible football. We were looking like we were going to win the league that season. You know, it was nuts. Robbie Williams was singing songs for us. And then Chelsea, as always. But, you know, so I think it's hard to see what's going to happen. I think it's going to take Frank a bit of time, but I think he's a bloody good manager. And I think as a club, we're moving in the right direction. And, you know, if Chelsea get a few injuries this season, which they deserve, then maybe we can, have a little bit more luck on that side this season and get into that top 4 and really compete and cement ourselves as a top 4 team and bring in those last few players to really push us over the edge over the coming seasons.
I think, a top 6 and Arsenal coming second again, that would be a great...
That would be, that's utopia.
Great season. I'll take Arsenal second over last 16 finish the Champions League, actually.
Just conscious of the time, like to just quickly look at the West Ham game on the weekend.
Yeah, I was about to say the same. I've got about 5 minutes where I need to do real work. West Ham game for me last week or the week before the international break. Strange result for West Ham. No one called that. Like, no one called they'd go to Forest and pump them. No. And also, nobody called that Bournemouth would rock up and beat us. Like, I thought it'd be a close game, a good game. Yeah. Very comfortably. It could have been 4-5.
My sister was at the game. I mean, she said it's the most boring game she'd been to in
Graham
years.
was there. Yeah, Graham was there too.
It was bad. We were poor.
Yeah, really bad.
Poor.
So I think the West Ham game, I think Simmons starts. I think he's straight in. I see no reason not to. I don't know about Bawani. I think he starts on the bench. I think he'd go Richarlison up top if
he's been in training. I don't think he was away internationally. I think he's been training since he joined. So he might be closer to starting Simmons because Simmons has been away with the Netherlands, right?
He has been away, but that also suggests to me he's got minutes in the legs. Just get him in for me. Get Simmons in. If we had him against Bournemouth, it changes the outlook of that game completely. I think we beat West Ham. I think we might, beyond hope, I think we might go and do what Chelsea did to them. I think we've got enough in our locker to go and give them an absolute hiding on their own patch, which would be lovely.
Question, though.
Kick on.
I didn't see the game. Did West Ham win because they were really good on the day, or was that just their luck in playing Forest in a shambles?
In my opinion, West Ham won because Paqueta was playing like really was a season or two ago. He absolutely run the show.
So he wanted the transfer, didn't he? He wanted to come to us, clearly. He was
apparently,
he's
the badge though, and he kissed the badge and everything. So I fancy we beat them 3-0. I also agree with you. I think Simmons has to go straight in. Wani, I don't think starts. I think you have to start Richarlison up there. I think he's had a good start to the season. Nobody had a good game against Bournemouth, so I have to wipe him out of that. I think there's an element of that maybe we can be a little bit grateful for in the fact there might have been a really early season wake-up call. Hold up, you can't just rock up to teams like Bournemouth and think we're going to win this under Frank or with this new setup. Yeah. So I think we spank them, to be honest.
Yeah, I hope so. To do. Jeremy, you got a prediction for us, mate?
I think we're going to win. Sorry, is it home or away?
Away.
It's a 5:30 UK kickoff. Ooh, so it's
it's the London
not
running.
Not too bad for you, is it? But for Glenn, it's not a great one.
Yeah, I've got some duties this weekend. I'm a part of the scout group with the kids, so I've got to help them out at camp. So I'll be, I don't know when I'll watch it. I will watch it, but I'll be on blackout and watch it at some point. 2:30 a.m. for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we'll win. And it's a question of how the game goes. And I think Frank is a little bit more capable of just managing a game. So if we're looking comfortable, I think he'll happily take a 2-0 win. And I think we can easily set up to make it very difficult for West Ham to get anything out of the game. So 2-0 win.
Graham, are you watching? Are you watching at home?
Yeah, I think Thomas is due back from Vegas today, and he's coming round at the weekend because
nice.
Heather and Charlotte are off to Dubai for a week, so I'm on my own with the dog. So he's going to come round and watch the game and go out for a curry with me. So I think,
nice one. 2-1. I'll take it. I'll take any 3 points. Well, it would be lovely to go there and absolutely spank them like Chelsea did.
Kudos, Kudos.
Kudos. Well, I forgot about that little subplot. Yes, Stephen, great point. Yes. I wonder what reception he'd get a bit of he'd be booed, wouldn't he? Yes.
Oh, he's going to get a horrible reception.
I think he'll thrive on. I think
with him.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, good stuff. Look, it was a real pleasure to have you both on. You know, I knew as soon as the news broke, I'd messaged with Graham. I was like, I've got an idea. We need to get Jeremy and Stephen on. So thank you both for joining. As always from me, nothing particularly more to add other than, as always, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.
Thanks to everyone who's listened in. Please like and subscribe to the podcast to tickle the algorithm so that we can get in front of more Spurs supporters. And on that note, as Glenn said, come on you Spurs.
Let me be the one that you turn to, someone you can rely on, closer